I think I'm losing control. I think I'm losing control.
Hello and welcome once again. Well, that was weird. Anyway, this is the Dr. Zeero Xiron Free Magic Secrets Show, where we investigate all forms of magic. We talk about all kinds of things and stuff. We talk about the book I put out called Apex Unhinged. If you just Google it, you find it. Talk about all the cool music I've been making on Suno. And we here comment on all kinds of happenings in the occult world and different things about, magic evolution and concepts that are coming out there. And today I woke up at like barely 6 a.m. and it was all foggy and it had that perfect feel to it, that perfect November ambiance. And every day that I keep waking up, I keep thinking of our buddy here who passed not so long ago. And it's all very fresh and it's making its way through the, the occult broadcasters on social media, people with their different podcasts and such. And I feel drawn to talk about it a little bit more. It's really sad and it's difficult. I did a video about a week ago now when I heard the news. I just wanted to come on and say some positive stuff. If you don't know, I'm referencing Anna Menorah, which I'm sure you probably figured that out. She was a occult practitioner, super Luciferian witch who burned really bright and hard and then kind of crashed out, and then apparently things weren't very pretty in the past few months leading up to what happened. But I can't speak for any of that. I don't know where her head was at. I haven't been able to locate any like videos she did. Because the thing that's really sad here is that she was this larger than life personality who left a big imprint on people and had an awful lot to say. And she had a ton of stuff that she made on YouTube and had her own channel. But in frustration and wanting to move her content to like more like Patreon kind of stuff where you kick some money to, get access to the show, she like deleted all her public stuff that was on YouTube. And she never got around to reposting it, which means that the traces of her that are left, there's really only like maybe a dozen that I found on YouTube of shows of her talking. And there's a handful of them from like 3 years ago, and there's a few from 2 years ago, and then there's like one that's like a year ago. That's most recent. And at that point, she was in Australia. Because the long story, I guess I'll talk a little bit more about her trajectory. I don't want to get too tangled up in the threads that I've laid down so far. But the last one that I did see, she was in, I guess, as good as the headspace as she'd be in, and that was when she was in Australia, and she did a split screen video with someone that was like interviewing her. So there's all kinds of stuff, and I'm feeling like pretty haunted by this one, because it's like this person, like I didn't hang out with them in person. There was a moment where when they were traveling America, they swang through my territory. And we were I was gonna buy her lunch and at least point her in the right direction and talk to her and all that. But it didn't really work out because she was only in my area for like 2 or 3 days, and she had her hands full, and she just kind of like had an option to go somewhere else, and she just went for it really quick, impulsively. Which is what you got to do when you're traveling and you're broke and you're kind of bumming it and you've overstayed your tourist visa. You kind of got to go with what works. But I would say that's one of the things. I don't want to say a flaw, because it's not necessarily a flaw, but it is part of that response of fight or flight, kind of constantly being there, is being unable to see the forest for the trees. You know that saying, where all the individual things going on are all of their own caliber, and they have all their own opportunities. And she was a person who, in fight or flight, constantly traveling, she had a very, I don't know, maybe narrow, paranoid sort of way of accepting what the options would be or the opportunities would be. It was very honed. And as I said, she was like a Luciferian witch. So, she was always a devotee of this, and was kind of, let this thing guide me. And we'll talk about all that in a little bit. So yeah, I'm just saying what I wanted to, I guess what I was going for there is that I was saying, like, if she had reached out and talked to me, I would have talked to her. And that's a pledge that anybody out there listening to, like, if he gets to this point where, it's a brick wall, you can talk to Zeero. I'll do my best, but I'll throw that lifeline out. Even if we should be bitter enemies on paper, and you're a curse slinging, hex slinging, black magic maniac, I'll still take the time to converse with you, because if you guys haven't caught on to all the things I've said, I'm essentially a druid. Because, the druid thing is, it's a notion and an etho and a structured way of being a jack of all trades to the pagan and magic community as a whole. And also adopting that priestly air, that the nature priest, Nature priest, that's me, nature boy, running around naked in the woods on a bunch of shroomies. But yeah, I'll come sprinkle blessed water on you. Whatever pantheon makes you happy, we can always do that. So yeah, I feel bad because I couldn't help the situation, and but I do know that I had sent her a PDF of my new book. And the book is meant to render a very specific effect. And I don't know if she read the whole thing, but I know she at least flipped through it, and some stuff got through to her. That was kind of my way to reach out to people and say, you're not alone. So I feel like I tried, but had she, contacted me, and, I would have case worked it a little bit. And I feel haunted by the thing, this whole situation, because it's hard to be really personable with people out there when you're underneath a persona, because there's Zeero Xiron, and then there's normal guy. But it's not like those are my only aliases. I've got tons of aliases. I've been all kinds of things. This is just one of the newer masks, but I like this mask for the time being. Someday there'll be another mask, just as there was before and before and before and before. So the picture that I got here is that this person, after hearing other people's live YouTube videos talking about this person's history and how deeply, deeply lonely they were. And that makes sense when, she was, performer, she did, stage performance in Las Vegas there. And, she had, whatever the equivalent of OnlyFans or whatever, one of those sort of things. She was on that kind of stuff. Getting the money out of the dudes who were willing to fling it. So there was no shortage of attention that she was getting from other humans on that level, but there was a deeply unfulfilled lack of truly finding the real thing. Because love and romance was important to this person. She talked about it a lot in between the lines, or mentioning stuff she had his romantic notions about a number of things, and that was something in her life that eluded her, even though she had all these other dudes just throwing themselves at her. But if some groveling male is throwing themselves at her, it just made her feel contempt. I'm sure she seemed that way. And the way that it ended, the Infernal Divine, they were all very, very, very real to her, And they were very much like real people to her that she was communicating with. And, she started a Luciferian witch. And by the end there, at least the last year of her life, I mean, she was just openly saying, like, I am the bride of Lucifer. Like, he's my husband. You know what I mean? She was straight up, like, married to this thing. And the heartbreaking thing about this, she might have just wanted to go be with Lucifer because the world didn't understand her, and she wanted to go to the realm where she would be understood. Kind of thing. And I can't say that for certain, but things seem to like hint like that direction, and I probably shouldn't be making that kind of assumption on a YouTube video, and I'm probably going to piss some people off because I just said what I did, but objectively looking at the situation, I think psychologically that would probably be most relevant, if not the overriding factor, than like the general picture. I think just like she wanted to be away from the world that did not understand her, and she wanted to go home. And it's sad that she couldn't see the forest for the trees. She couldn't restart. And I think that going back to the Czech Republic after her big, long journey, it was like she might have seen as some kind of failure, but it wasn't. It was like she was very, maybe a lot of stuff she saw as fatalistic. And once it becomes fatalistic, it becomes a dead end. And then you're liable to leave that option or opportunity behind, like it has this painful memory to it because it didn't work. So therefore, trying it again, because if you do the same thing over and over and over and over and it never works and you expect a different result, that's called being crazy. But sometimes opportunities in life are like that. Like sometimes you try to make a movie. It doesn't happen. It falls apart. Try again, it falls apart. Try again, it falls apart. Eventually, it's going to happen. Now, there will be an awful lot of people who will probably get like pissy with me for the next thing I have to talk about. An animal would get pissy with me too, and it is not about her and her situation. I'm just talking about like Luciferianism in general. And, you've talked about the origin and the source. And a bunch of people out there will know, the origin of this name comes from Judaism, and where it appears in their holy books, it's talking about a king who fell, and they were comparing him to the morning star. And then when the Christians started their cult on top of Judaism, Lucifer got changed into an actual demon, and the reference was lost. And then they turned all this. This is when all this whole story about the war in heaven and Lucifer leading the angels against God and being cast down to hell and all this stuff. This is a Christian conception. The Jews don't have this at all. There's no Lucifer in Judaism, right? It's not there. Doesn't exist. Okay, so this is a Christian concept, and the thing that I need to press here is that if you're a Luciferian witch and you're tied up with Lucifer and all this stuff, you're still a Christian. You've just switched sides. And you could say, well, okay, I'm separating Lucifer. Okay, there's the other way to talk about it. The other, if you're going to poo-poo on what I just said, and I hear you, but, there's the Roman Lucifer or whatever. There's like symbolic Lucifer, and there's symbolic Lucifer, the figure of which has been reinterpreted as a bunch of different mythological characters forever and ever. And like we said, when you create a thought form in your head in a symbolic way, and the symbol is in the form of like a person that is the supernatural being, and you animate it with your own mind. The gods and goddesses and demons and daemons and all these things exist within you. And when you create them, you are like God creating man, and man creates making a golem. So the gods and goddesses, the deities, the daemons, all this shit, most of them, all right, unless they're in an actual invisible entity that you're mediumistically opening yourself to, and they're coming into contact with you, which may or may not be real, that's its own discussion. And this is where demons kind of come into play, or what they're supposed to be. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, point is, because Anima here, I mean, she'd be very, very, very pissed if I was trying to be like, yo, you're really a Christian because you're following Christian mythology. You just switch sides. Either that, or you're what she was doing was what a lot of people on the left-hand path do, is where they absorb. It's sort of like, okay, it's like this. The Hindus, right? The reason there's a gazillion gods on Hinduism is because it's the idea that any kind of understanding that you have of the universe through any kind of creative force is a valid face of God, because it's part of the whole experience. So basically, it's like almost like a comic book religion where you're creating your own gods constantly, like your urge to create your own gods. And, that's completely wild from the Catholic or Christian idea. Like, it's completely not, that's like, they would look at that as black magic. That's idol. That's creating idols. Their whole religion is creating idols, So that sort of approach, left-hand path kind of picks up that notion, but is like the entire infernal divine is all like valid in the same way that like the Hindus look at the force of the universe as you can just create your own God. It's like a free-for-all, infernal free-for-all. And people aren't really thinking of where this begins or there ends, and I guess this is the right term would be demonolatry, right? Because that's when you basically make a religion out of all the demons, and you're completely like invested in them, and there's just tons of them. And then it's as complicated and vast as like trying to figure out like all the Hindu gods and all this stuff. But getting back to what I was saying, she was above all a Lucifer devotee, a Luciferian witch. That's what we need to talk about, Luciferianism. And it's just like, how can you not see that you're hitched to mythology that's hitched to a very specific religion? Because if you're going to tell me Lucifer is real, then you're going to have to buy into Jesus, and I know none of you guys do. Or you think Jesus is real and you're rebelling against him. And then that's like Christian theistic Satanism. And of course, I know there's like theistic Satanism where you have your own idea about what that would mean. So this next part is going to be kind of funny and kind of absurd at the same time. When I think about like a normal person listening to it or what I have to say here, a quote unquote normal person, people who don't talk to Satan, which isn't real, but kind of is at the same time. So I wanted to talk about Satan and Lucifer real quick, because I know you guys are big fans. So talking about if you're a Luciferian witch or a Luciferian person, you're subscribing to Christian mythology, so you're basically just a Christian who switched sides. And if you're going to tell me Lucifer is real in the Christian, biblical, mythological sense, then you got to be telling me that Noah's Ark was real, and you got to be telling me that, you know, all the things that the Bible says are also real. Because if you're going to say this part of mythology is real, but everything else is disposable to my whims, you know, it doesn't really make much sense. But then you can also, you know, put the blinders on and you can say, you know, your version of Lucifer and the Bible has it all wrong, but you got it right. And I don't know if that was, you know, the Anima's perspective. So I just want to say, because Doc here was raised up in a situation where the family was hardcore Irish Catholic, and I was brought up, and it was explained to me that Satan and Lucifer were the exact same guy, and it was just a different name for the same person, character, you know. And they all were like, all this stuff is very, very real, and I never bought into it, but I liked the idea of like that part of mythology or whatever, like. You know, you don't really completely have your own mind as a child until you start to really discern stuff and start to break away and question things, right? And a lot of, like, you know, your childhood is front loaded by adults telling you all kinds of shit about, like, here's how the world really is, and they just kind of fill you with their shit, and then, you know, you start questioning things. But even before I started heavily questioning things, it just all felt like false, and I didn't really buy into it or pay attention to it, and I wasn't interested in it. I liked the rituals. I liked people going to kind of to the churches, but I didn't understand why they were acting the way they were, like, once they got there, or like none of it really made any sense to me, but I didn't know how to vocalize it. It didn't make any sense to me. And then when it was pushed on me, like, oh no, you are this, and we need you to go further with this. Like, you go to get your catechism. I don't even know what a fucking catechism is, to be honest. I never got to the point where I found out what that meant. But you become more Catholicized through different levels. So, I was a mishmash of weird, wonky ideas. I was barely even a human until I was like a teenager, because I had a family that surrounded me, and there were more normal, healthy people. And I had a single mother who was a religious Catholic fanatic who had a heavy duty brain injury that made things that weren't real seem way more real, and very fire and brimstone, dogmatic, cuckoo, barbaric opinions about a great number of things. But, you know, the guy, the Kirk to the Lee of Char, you know, the guy who got popped. Just imagine living with a single parent that was like, talked like that nonstop the entire time, but even worse, and mixed with like the Westboro Baptist Church people. So that's what Dr. Zeero had to listen to nonstop forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, until Doc was old enough to get the fuck out of that house and go live their own life. So, you know, that's my background. So this you can understand why, you know, my view, you could say, is actually pretty, it's like I'm have this heavily atheistic view to a degree. It's like this. And this is just a quick, and we're going to go with our subject. But to say, Mike, I was previously said non-Abrahamic monotheism, as in architect and creation, like something behind the veil which led everything into existence. Whatever that is, I don't know. It's a riddle. So what I'm really am describing is panentheism, where the physical universe is like, quote unquote, the body of God, or the existence. Like physical universe is God itself. But there's also a little bit more behind the veil. I don't know what that is. And I know it has to do with energy. Some kind of, because if intelligence is imbued to the universe, and as living creatures we have it, intelligence must be part of the quotient which created everything. And you don't want to use a word like intelligent design, because that means it was created for Jesus. That's a weird Jesus thing. But intelligence in the design, So where was I going with this? So I'm like this panentheist individual where I recognize that there's something a little bit more than just the Big Bang out of nowhere for no fucking reason. There has to be an answer. We're never going to figure out what that answer is. I doubt. Not in our lifetime, at least. And this is why I like the Tree of Life so much, because it, simulates all the makings of the universe in microcosm and macrocosm, what we can glean from it. And I wanted to talk about, therefore I look at all things. So like there's all kinds of religions that I just don't buy into at all. And my general opinion is that if someone tells you that they have the answer, you should be extremely skeptical of what the answer is, because nobody knows what the fucking riddle that created us is. So you can get things right to a certain degree. But if you feel like you've been given the answer, that it means that, I've arrived to the answer. So the answer is like a brick wall and there's no more growth beyond that, because now I know the ultimate answer. So what is the point of existence? Well, then the answer shifts into something else. It's a constantly evolving thing. So we have to talk about, Lucifer and Satan and all this stuff, right? When you dial it back to Judaism, you see, like I said, in Christianity, Catholicism onwards, Satan and Lucifer get conflated as like the same individual. But you have to look at what does Satan actually mean and actually imply when you go back to the original religion. Satan is a code word. And the code word means the adversary. And what it is referring to is kind of like a line of demarcation where humanity goes towards the direction of inhumanity. And it has to do with energy. It's the thing inside us that can launch us towards the energy of inhumanity. It's pretty simple. It's that that thing that pushes you over the edge into madness, towards violence, towards everything that Cliff Off describes, It's just the impulse towards the darkness. It's like a lever getting pulled. That's what Satan is. It's not a fucking red man with horns on a throne and a lake of fire. It's the thing in us that points us to do the inharmonious, the cruel, you know? And in that sense, it's very, very real. Now, the thing that I want to talk about, I was laughing at the beginning of when I started talking, just about like trying to explain to someone that, oh yeah, I have like a more of an atheist outlook, but at the same time, I'm a non-Abrahamic monotheist. And by the way, I do talk to Satan because you can animate him like a golem in your mind and then have a conversation with a thought form, meditating with it, and seeking gnosis with something that you created yourself. And that some of the most brilliant things that ever came to me is because I asked Satan by creating him in my mind. In that sense, because I'm always, you hang out in life, and sometimes different opportunities or different situations occur. And then maybe you think to yourself before you make a decision, you're like, oh, what would my old friend think of this? What would they say? And then they pop in your head and you're like, what would my father say about this? Then your father pops in your head and like, what would Satan say about this? Well, I've been asking myself that question over and over and over, because to me, Satan is just it's like a big cartoony thing. That's why I can never take from a personal perspective, I can never delve into theistic Satanism or what other stuff. I can't take it that much. It's something that I have to rebel against. Having Catholicism shoved up my ass. And the thing is, as much as I love how the devil just freaks out easily superstitious, foolish people, and I love the mythology of it, like the idea of a dark angel who fucking turned on God and is now in like a fire pit with a legion of fucking demons. Like, this is all very, very heavy metal sort of stuff. And I get the appeal, don't get me wrong. And understand that, like, my favorite character in literature is sort of the Lucifer Satan character of the more Christian view, the more Catholic idea of him, but he's not a real person, You can seek all the gnosis in the world with this, but it's a literary character, He represents very, very real energies, very, very real things about human psychology. There's all kinds of information you can glean from this archetype. But you can get lost. So I don't know. This has been going on for a while now, and I know I said a lot of stuff. So I'm trying to talk some sense. I'm just trying to get some stuff across. Because, like I said, I'm pretty depressed by the whole situation. And maybe this message will get out to some other people who are right on the cusp of hitting a brick wall. Anyway, maybe these words will get through to you.
A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman tiptoes to my room every night, just to sprinkle stardust and to whisper, go to sleep, everything is all right. I close my eyes, then I drift away into the magic night. I softly say a silent prayer, like dreamers do. Then I fall asleep to dream
hit the fucking road. We're giving our neighbor a joyride. Let's get on with it. Bye, Ben. Anyone want to go on a joyride with us? How about you? Huh? Hey, no smile for Frank? No? Okay, fuck it. Let's go! You want to go with Raymond? Come on.
I'll see you Tuesday, Frank. Right then. Now let's start.